So we're running a bit late, I'm afraid, so standing between you and a drink is Claire.
Oh no, that's rubbish. And I can just talk while you've got a drink in your hand.
So we've only got about 10 minutes or so. Sorry, it's a bit truncated, but we're in this wonderful building. You've been through quite a period of change. We thought it would be a sort of a fitting end to the day to talk about the future of Arnolfini. You know, you're in your role in making Bristol much more of a creative powerhouse. So. Really keen to hear your plans for, well, I think perhaps a little bit of context, the journey you've been on, where you're at now, but also what your plans are for the future.
Yeah, so many of us are Bristolians. I've known Arnolfini for 20 years or so. I only started here as director just over a year ago, and I started 2 months after we got the news that the funding for Arnolfini had been frozen, withdrawn, and its future was in serious peril. Now, lots of cultural organisations like this, it's 56 years old, Arnolfini. It was set up by two teenagers in 1961, came to this building in 73, when there was no bridge across the water, no watershed there. Many organisations like this go through kind of crisis moments. And I guess what I wanted to say to you today is that I see Arnolfini as an absolutely pivotal part of the cultural sector and the creative industries in this city. But it needs to be reinvented. It needs to be open and generous and dynamic and have all sorts of activity going on within it. And I think it's so much more than a building, and it's so much more than a gallery. I think for those people I've spoken to over the past year who have loved Arnolfini, many in the 80s and the 90s will describe going to sort of outrageous films or outrageous performances in the theatre, or coming here and gathering, seeing unexpected people and seeing exhibitions that they never imagined that have inspired them as filmmakers, as musicians, as editors. So we know that a place like this has a real effect on the creative future of this city, but only if it's reaching beyond the usual suspects, really, really connecting with people's lives. So the good news is we've spent a year negotiating and building a really great partnership with the University of the West of England, who own the freehold of the building. And we're hoping that in about 6 months we'll relaunch Arnolfini in a very different guise. And I'm going to need your help to grow it, because I don't think there's a sort of ta-da moment, a moment at which we open the doors and it's changed. What we want to do is learn what you want Arnolfini to be. So just this year we've trialled some things. We've brought in new cultural tenants, for example. We have Mason Mentor here. We have Wonderland PR agency upstairs. We have a number of different kind of projects that are going on in the building. We have studios for use for testing things out, scratch performances and film screenings. The theatre's going to come back much more into programmed use, so it's a fantastic place to, again, network and test things out. And the programme will be 3 major seasons of international work a year. So the purpose of Bristol's International Arts House is really to bring work here that's globally significant. So we need to be as proud of this place as Tate St Ives are of the Tate, or Notting Contemporary are. So it needs to be really driving forward. And to that end, the other thing that we're doing with the organisation is we're going to start to really change the conditions of what it means to work in the arts. So with Watershed, we're launching a pledge in a few months' time, which is about working conditions and recruitment, to really change who's coming to work in the arts and how do you do that. And there's all sorts of things that are coming up that may be useful to share, which is really about diversifying our workforces, but actually to make sure that the organisations that are in the cultural sector genuinely represent the Bristol that we know. So there's small things that we can do, change our recruitment processes, change the conditions of what it feels like to work here, change the flexible hours and support very, very different people from different backgrounds and different care responsibilities to be working in an environment. And what I think Bristol can do is show nationally actually how we're not only the most creative city but genuinely the most inclusive. But that means we've got to change the type of organisations that these places are. So I'm looking forward to welcoming you to be part of the new Arnolfini, and let me know if you're interested in coming and working here or taking some of the workspace, or if there are ways in which we can support you too, because it's a great platform to reach that national audience, really.
So just very, very quickly then, so Arnolfini is the plan to reopen as a gallery, or do you sort of see yourself being in a very different type of cultural organisation then?
Well, I mean, it was originally set up in '61 as an ICA, as the Institute of Contemporary Arts. It's always been cross-art form. And I think the interesting thing about this building is its galleries. So there's 3 galleries here, 2 upstairs and 1 downstairs, has 6 galleries. But we know that across nationally, there's outstanding new architectural spaces now for visual arts. So the great offer of a space like this for a filmmaker like Steve McQueen, who we hope will come and show here in time, is not simply the galleries, it's the fact we have a theatre, 260-seater downstairs, and the possibility to show film. We have rehearsal studios and other things. So when I say arts house, that's what I mean. You have to walk in and there being all sorts of things going on all over the building that feed that idea. The idea that it's a sort of high-end gallery has to go, because it has to be really moving with how people are genuinely getting involved in culture in our city.
And we've heard quite a lot today about that crossover between people working in tech, people working in coding, manufacturing and arts. And you know, most of the businesses in our networks, you know, are quite often a fusion of all of those disciplines.
Yeah.
Do you see that within your sort of concept of an art space? Do you think there's also going to be space for the sort of the business element of that? Because more and more we need to sustain the arts if we're going to actually create things that are unique, inspiring. You know, all of the things that we want to buy, they do start with a good idea, which is quite often about communicating something, a feeling, an emotion, a story, or whatever. That has to come from somewhere. That isn't just somebody sat on their bed, thinking about it, or you know, in the shower. So it'd be interesting to just hear a little bit about how you see the work that you're doing, then connecting with that part of building the business ecosystem.
So I think there's something really interesting to imagine for a moment. That let's imagine Arnolfini had shut last year and this building was going to be used for creative workspaces, shared spaces and laboratories. What would we miss? What would be missing from the cultural ecology? Because Watershed does an outstanding job with the Pervasive Media Studio. Engine Shed is superb. So what is it that only this organisation can do in response to the rest of the creative sector in the city? And I think that it is about inspiration, actually. I think it is about working with artists and creative practitioners across the city, but internationally, to show work that then goes on to inspire you to have those creative ideas. We haven't got enough showing spaces in the city, and you only have to look at how Bristol Old Vic, as our primary theatre space, and the way that this is a primary cross-art form and visual space, inspires theatre makers to understand about what you need in a place like this to really fuel those creative ideas. So the crucial thing here is there are workspaces and opportunities to scratch test things, but what you need to do is walk in here and be wowed by something that you never imagined you saw. And that will have creative technologists a part of it. Many of the artists we're working with are working with very different creative technologists, sound designers, film animators in lots of different ways. But I think that's the crucial thing, is that this is both a cultural destination and a civic space.
That's great, thank you so much. I can actually hear that some people have already started doing the drinking. And actually, I'm going to say this very loudly because I recognise some of the voices out there too. So thank you very much, Claire. Thank you.
Thanks, pleasure.